In the small, quiet town of Westbridge, winter had wrapped its icy arms around everything. The trees were bare, the roads were slippery, and the sky looked heavy with more snow. People walked quickly, coats pulled tight, eyes to the ground. No one had time for kindness. Everyone was too busy trying to stay warm and get home. But not Lily Bennett. Lily was just 18, and life had already been very hard on her. She had no parents, no siblings, and no real home. Her mother had died when Lily was only 14. Since then, she had been on her own. Her only treasure was an old, rusty bicycle that had once belonged to her mother. That bicycle was her job, her hope, and sometimes her shelter. Lily worked as a delivery girl. Every day, she carried food orders, letters, and small packages all over town. She earned just enough to rent a small bed space in a broken-down house that leaked when it rained. But it was better than the streets. Her landlord was strict. If she missed even one rent deadline, she would be thrown out. No questions. No second chances. That night, the cold felt sharper than usual. Her fingers were stiff, her toes numb inside her thin socks. But she had just one last delivery left before she could go home. It had to be done by 8 p.m. or her boss would cut her pay. And worse, her landlord would evict her for being late on rent. She stopped to rest for just a few minutes near a flickering bus stop on Maple Street. Her breath puffed out like smoke in the freezing air. She rubbed her hands together, trying to keep them warm enough to steer the bike again. She glanced at the cracked street clock nearby. 7:18 p.m. Then she saw him. An old white man stood near the bench, shivering badly. His coat was too thin, his hat was missing, and his shoes looked soaked from the slush. He held a worn-out brown satchel and mumbled softly to himself. Most people walking by didn't even look at him. Few turned away. One person even crossed the street to avoid him. But Lily didn't. She squinted and watched him closely. Something about him didn't seem right. He wasn't just cold, he looked confused. Plus, maybe even scared. She slowly walked her bike closer. "Excuse me, sir. Are you okay?" The old man blinked at her. His lips trembled. "Bus. Number 12. Did it come yet?" Lily frowned. There hadn't been a bus number 12 on Maple Street for years. The route had been shut down. Everyone in town knew that. But maybe he didn't. "I don't think that bus runs anymore," she said gently. "Where are you going?" He looked at her with tired, watery eyes. Oakview Drive. My house. Number 48. My wife, she's waiting." Then he clutched his chest and swayed a little. Lily quickly reached out to steady him. His skin felt like ice. "Sir, do you have a phone?" she asked. "Can I call someone for you?" "No phone," he said. "I lost it. I can't remember." Lily didn't know what to do. Her eyes scanned him again and saw a silver pendant hanging from a chain around his neck. She gently turned it and saw something engraved. George Eliot, 48 Oakview Drive. Her heart skipped a beat. That was a real place. But it was nearly 2 hours away by bike. And most of it was uphill. If she took him there, she would definitely miss her delivery. And she'd lose her pay. That meant no food. No bed. No job. She looked back at George. His lips had turned slightly blue. He blinked slowly and whispered, "Are you the nurse?" Lily didn't answer. Her chest felt tight. Her brain screamed, "Walk away. Do your delivery. You need the money." But her heart said something else. She looked down at her jacket. It was thin but still warmer than what George had. Slowly, she took it off and wrapped it around him. "I'm not a nurse," she said quietly. "But I'll get you home." She helped him sit on the back of her bicycle. It was hard. He was heavy and the seat was too small. But she managed. She gripped the handlebars tightly and began to pedal. The cold air slapped her face like knives. Her hands froze to the metal grips. The road was bumpy, and her legs began to ache quickly. Still she pushed forward. "Do you like music?" George asked suddenly. Lily panted through her chattering teeth. Sure. He started humming a tune. He asked her again a few minutes later. Then again. He forgot he'd already asked. Each time Lily answered with a soft smile. At one point she saw a small tea shop. Her stomach growled. She reached into her pocket and found her last dollar. She went in, bought 1 cup of hot tea, and handed it to George. You first, she said, even though her lips were turning purple. They sat on the curb for 5 minutes. Then she lifted him back onto the bike and began again. The climb was long. Her legs burned. But she didn't stop. Finally, at 9:30 p.m., they reached a beautiful large brick house with the number 48 on the gate. She rang the bell. A tall, older man in a suit opened the door. His eyes went wide. Mr. Elliot. We've been calling hospitals all night. Where how? George smiled and pointed at Lily. She brought me. The man helped George inside. Please, miss, he said. Come in. Have some food. Let us take you home. But Lily shook her head. She pulled a crumpled receipt from her pocket and scribbled her name and phone number on it. I'm just glad he's safe, she said. This is for if he ever needs help again. She turned, got back on her bike, and began to ride off into the cold night. The night wind roared louder as Lily pedaled away from the mansion on Oakview Drive. Her cheeks burned from the cold. Her fingers ached, stiff and red. But her heart felt heavy, not from the cold, but from fear. She pulled into the narrow street leading back to her lodging, praying silently. Please let the door still be open. Please. Her legs were weak. Her eyes stung from the wind. She reached the gate and hopped off her bicycle. Her heart dropped. There was a plastic bag by the door. Inside were her clothes, a blanket, her worn shoes, everything she owned. A note sat on top, stuck with tape. Rent overdue. Door locked. Don't come back. Lily stared at the note, her eyes wide. She knocked softly. No answer. She knocked again, harder this time. Nothing. Her breath clouded the night air. A cold gust blew across the street, lifting a piece of newspaper and tossing it near her feet. She picked up her bag, hugged it to her chest and looked around. There was nowhere to go. She sat on the step for a few minutes, hoping the landlord would change his mind. But the lights inside were off. No one was coming. She whispered, "Okay. Don't cry." Lily picked up her bike and started walking. There was one place she could go, Johnson's Market. Mr. Johnson, the grumpy store owner, sometimes let her sweep the floor or restock shelves in exchange for old bread or leftover soup. She reached the store, knocked on the side door and waited. The light flicked on. Mr. Johnson's tired face peeked through the curtain. "It's late," he grumbled, opening the door. "Why were you out here? What happened?" "I lost my room," she said. Her voice cracked, but she quickly looked away, ashamed. Mr. Johnson stared at her for a moment. Then, without a word, he stepped aside and opened the back door wider. She walked in quietly. The air inside was warmer, familiar, smelled like onions and soap. He led her to the storeroom, a small space in the back with crates of tomatoes, onions, canned beans, and boxes stacked to the ceiling. There was an old cot in the corner, a thin blanket folded at the edge. He pointed to it and said, "You can stay. Just don't snore." Lily smiled weakly and nodded. "Thank you, sir." He left and shut the door. She lay down slowly. The cot creaked under her, and the blanket barely covered her feet. But after the long ride, the freezing cold, and losing her room, this felt like heaven. She curled up tightly and closed her eyes. But her mind kept racing. Would she lose her job in the morning for missing the delivery? Would she ever have a real home? Her throat tightened. Then she remembered George's soft humming on the ride. His gentle words. The way he smiled when they reached his home. And how he had said, "You brought me back." Lily smiled just a little and drifted off to sleep. The next morning, a loud knock on the storeroom door woke her. She sat up quickly, blinking. Mr. Johnson opened the door halfway and looked at her. "Someone's outside." "In a black car," he said, scratching his head. Wants to talk to you. Me? He shrugged. Says it's important. Lily stood confused. Her heart thudded. She stepped outside and froze. Parked in front of the market was a shiny black car with tinted windows. A man in a clean suit stood beside it. He had a clipboard and a calm, serious face. Miss Bennet, he asked. Lily hesitated. Yes. My name is Charles. I work for Mr. George Eliot. Lily's eyes widened. He remembered. Charles nodded. He remembered everything. After you left last night, his memory returned. First your face, then your name, then the ride. He told us what you did for him. Lily looked down at her shoes. They were soaked from the snow and covered in holes. He would like to see you, Charles said. If you're willing. She glanced back at Mr. Johnson, who stood behind her, arms crossed, eyebrows raised. He nodded slowly. Go on, girl. Your bike'll be here when you get back. Lily gave him a small smile and climbed into the back seat of the car. The ride to Oakview felt shorter this time. Maybe because the seat was warm. Maybe because she didn't have to pedal. Or maybe because her heart was full of questions. The mansion looked even bigger in daylight. A butler opened the door before Charles could knock. George sat in a wheelchair near the fireplace in the large living room. He looked sharper now, his eyes bright, his posture straight. He smiled warmly when he saw Lily. You came, he said, voice soft. Lily nodded shyly. I didn't think you'd remember me. I didn't at first, he said. But something about your kindness, it pulled me out of that fog. You didn't treat me like I was broken. She stayed quiet, unsure what to say. George took a deep breath. I don't want you to sleep in storerooms anymore. I want to offer you a place here. Room. Warm meals. Until you find your feet. Lily's eyes widened. I don't know. It's not charity, George added quickly. It's a thank you. This house has too many rooms and not enough kindness. Lily looked at the fireplace, then at the walls, the floors, the expensive art. But I didn't help you for a reward. George smiled. That's exactly why I want you to stay. Lily didn't give an answer. Not yet. That evening, she returned to the market and sat behind the building. The sunset painted the sky orange and pink. She sat on her bike thinking. She had lived most of her life with nothing. No one. And now, someone was offering her a place in their world. Safe place. Kind one. Could she trust it? Could she believe it was real? She didn't know. But the next morning something happened. George Eliot himself showed up at the market. He stepped out of the black car slowly, using a cane. Mr. Johnson stared in shock. George walked up to Lily and said, When you helped me, something inside me woke up. You remind me of my grandson who passed a few years ago. I want you to have this. He handed her a folded letter, written in his neat handwriting. Dear Lily, you brought me home when I couldn't remember where home was. You showed me kindness when the world turned away. I want you to live at Oakview. I've arranged a small stipend to help you. If you wish, I will also sponsor your return to school. You don't owe me anything. Just say yes. George Eliot. Lily held the letter tightly. Her eyes filled with tears. And after a long pause she whispered, Okay, I'll come. The next day, Lily stood outside Johnson's market with her small plastic bag of belongings and her bicycle. She stared at the folded letter from George in her hand. The sky was overcast, and snowflakes had started falling again, gentle but cold. Mr. Johnson came outside, chewing on a toothpick. So, he asked, nodding toward the street. You going? Lily nodded slowly. Yes, he was kind, like really kind. I think he means it. Mr. Johnson grunted, then patted her on the back. Good. But listen, if it doesn't work out, your cot in the storeroom is still here. And I'll keep your bike safe. Lily smiled, touched. Thank you. Just then, the black car rolled up again. Charles stepped out, opened the door for her, and helped her put her small bag in the back seat. It wasn't much. Just two old tops, a sweater with a hole in the elbow, and a pair of socks. The car pulled away, and Lily leaned her head against the window. Her heart beat fast. She didn't know what life inside a mansion would feel like. What if she didn't fit in? What if it was a mistake? But when they reached 48 Oakview Drive, all her worries seemed to pause for a moment. The gate slowly opened. The mansion looked even more magical in the light snow. The trees lining the driveway sparkled like diamonds under the dusting of white. Charles opened the car door. "Welcome home," he said gently. Lily's eyes widened. Home. That word felt too big. Too warm. Too not for her. But she followed him inside. George was waiting by the fireplace again, this time seated in a comfortable armchair, wearing a thick red sweater and holding a mug of tea. He looked stronger today, more alert. "Lily," he said with a smile. "You're here." She nodded shyly. "You really meant it." "I always mean what I say," he replied. "Come, sit." The butler brought her a plate of warm cookies and a cup of hot chocolate. Lily hesitated, then sat on the edge of the soft couch. Her hands trembled as she reached for the cup. She wasn't used to this. "Do you like books?" George asked. Lily blinked. "Yes, I used to read a lot at the library. Before things got hard." He smiled. "Good. This house has more books than people. You can read as many as you like." They talked for a while. George shared little stories about his late wife, his love for piano music, and his garden that sat frozen under the snow out back. Lily listened quietly, sipping her cocoa. Felt strange, but good. Later, George's housekeeper, Mrs. Langley, showed her to a guest room. The room had a soft bed with thick blankets, a little desk, and a wardrobe. I can stay here?" Lily asked. Mrs. Langley nodded. "As long as you like. Mr. Elliot says this room is yours now." Lily placed her small bag on the bed and stood still for a moment. The room smelled like lavender. The sheets were white and soft. There was even a tiny vase of dried flowers on the desk. She blinked hard to keep from crying. That night, for the first time in a long while, she slept with a full stomach and under a warm roof. The days passed gently. In the mornings, Lily helped Mrs. Langley fold laundry or water the indoor plants. In the afternoons, she read books by the fireplace. Sometimes, George would sit beside her and ask her thoughts on the story. She found herself laughing more often, smiling without thinking. One evening, George called her into his study. "I want to show you something," he said. He pulled out a dusty old folder and laid it on the table. Inside were papers, photos, and a notebook. "This is something I started years ago but never finished. I wanted to build a foundation. A place to help two kinds of people. Young folks like you who feel lost, and old folks like me who are often forgotten." Lily leaned in, curious. "I think you could help me finish it," George said. "You understand struggle. You have heart. What do you say?" Lily hesitated. "But I'm not anyone special." George smiled kindly. "That's where you're wrong." She agreed to help. And from that day on, her days had purpose. She worked beside George to design ideas, names, and plans for what they would soon call the Willow Light Fund. One snowy Saturday, Charles came into the room with a folder. "Sir, I've finished the enrollment forms," he said. Lily looked up. "Enrollment?" George turned to her. "I meant what I wrote in the letter, Lily. If you want to go back to school, you can. I'll cover it. All of it." Lily froze. "But I haven't been in school for almost 2 years. I don't know if I can keep up." "You've kept up with life," George said. "School will be easier than what you've already survived." Tears filled Lily's eyes. She opened the folder. Her name was already printed at the top of the form. Lily Bennett, student application. She whispered, "Thank you." That night, Lily went out for a walk in the garden behind the mansion. Snow crunched under her shoes. The moon hung low and quiet in the sky. She looked up and whispered, "Mama, can you see me now?" Then she smiled. Her hands still remembered the cold of the bus stop. Her legs still remembered the pain of the uphill ride. But her heart felt new. She had a room, bed, food, a purpose. And for the first time in her life, she had someone who saw her. The next morning, Lily stood in front of her mirror, dressed in a soft gray sweater and clean jeans, both gifts from Mrs. Langley. She barely recognized the girl in the reflection. Her face looked calmer. Her hair, which she used to braid alone in a hurry, was now neatly done. And there was something else too. Oh. She walked downstairs where George sat reading the newspaper. His glasses perched low on his nose. He looked up and smiled. "Good morning, Lily." "Morning, Mr. Elliot," she replied. He waved his hand. "We've talked about this. Please just call me George." She nodded shyly. "Okay, George." Breakfast was warm eggs, toast, and a slice of peach pie. Lily ate slowly, still not used to having enough food. Afterward, she and George spent the day sorting old letters and charity proposals in his study. By afternoon, George leaned back in his chair and sighed. "It feels good to work again. For a while, I thought my days of making a difference were over." "You're already making a difference," Lily said, eyes bright. "You helped me." He chuckled. "And you helped me first." The following week, Lily visited her new school for the first time. Charles drove her there and waited outside. Inside, the halls were bright, with posters on the walls and the sound of students chatting in every corner. Lily stood quietly in the office, nervous. She hadn't stepped into a classroom in nearly 2 years. Would she understand anything? Would the other students laugh at her if she stumbled? But the woman at the front desk smiled kindly. "You must be Lily Bennett. We've been expecting you. Welcome." Lily received her schedule, books, and even a school bag. Everything felt unreal. She touched the soft straps of the bag as if they might disappear. Her first class was literature. The teacher, Ms. Blake, introduced her to the class, and Lily took a seat at the back. For a while she just listened. She didn't raise her hand. She didn't speak. But when the teacher asked, "What do you think the author meant when he said, 'The wind carried her name across the valley'?" Lily slowly raised her hand. Everyone turned to look. She swallowed. "I think he meant someone missed her. Like really missed her. And the wind was a way to keep her memory alive." The class went silent. Then Ms. Blake smiled. "Beautifully said, Lily." From that moment, she began to find her rhythm. That evening, Lily returned to the mansion with tired legs but a full heart. George was waiting in the parlor with a surprise. A small golden pin in the shape of a willow tree. "What's this?" she asked. "Our foundation's symbol," he said. "You helped bring it to life. You deserve to wear it first." Lily pinned it gently on her sweater. "It's beautiful. We have our first project," George added. "There's a retirement home nearby. Many of the people there have no visitors. I thought we could start by bringing them books, warm socks, and time." "I'd love that," she said. The next few weeks were a blur of good work and personal growth. Lily helped George finalize their mission statement. "We are the light under the willow, offering shelter, warmth, and love to those the world forgot." Together, they printed flyers and visited local shops asking for donations. They bought scarves and gloves and wrapped them by hand. On the first visit to the retirement home, Lily sat with a woman named Miss Clara, who told stories about her childhood and favorite recipes. "You remind me of my daughter," Clara whispered, holding Lily's hand. "She passed on years ago. But your eyes, they're full of kindness." Lily smiled. "I'm glad I could be here." After that visit, Lily and George added a new goal to the foundation: to pair teens like Lily with elderly folks, building friendships across generations. Back at school, things were changing too. Lily joined a book club. She made a few friends, including a boy named Jack who admired her drawings. She never told anyone about the mansion or George. She didn't want attention. She just wanted a chance to grow quietly. One afternoon, after a long day at school, she sat with George on the front porch, watching the snow melt slowly. He turned to her and said, "You know, I used to think my life ended when my memory started to slip. But that night, when you stopped at the bus stop, everything changed. "I just didn't want you to freeze out there," she replied softly. "You saved more than just my body, Lily. You saved my spirit." He paused, then added, "And now you're becoming something incredible. I hope you see that." She didn't answer right away. Her eyes stared out at the driveway, where her rusty bike was now parked beside the black car. "Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I didn't stop. If I just kept riding." George nodded slowly. "That's the thing about kindness. It's never convenient, but it's always powerful." One day, as spring slowly touched the edges of Westbridge, Lily got a call from her former delivery boss. "Hey kid," he said. "I heard about the thing you started with Mr. Elliot. Proud of you." Lily blinked in surprise. You heard?" "Yeah. Whole town's talking. That lost man at the bus stop. That was him, wasn't it?" Lily smiled. "Yeah. That was George." "Well," he said, "we're running a fundraiser next week. Need volunteers. You up for it?" Lily looked over at George, who gave her a thumbs up. "Absolutely." That night, Lily sat in bed, reading a book with a small lamp beside her. She looked around at her room, the soft quilt, the books neatly stacked, the golden willow pin resting on her dresser. She reached under her pillow and pulled out the silver pendant she had found on George's neck that snowy night. She had kept it ever since. It reminded her that everything could change in a moment. That night she whispered, "Thank you." Not to anyone in particular, just to life. Because sometimes a door opens and it's not one you expected, but it's exactly the one you needed. Months passed. The trees in Westbridge blossomed with soft green leaves, and the town slowly thawed from the long, bitter winter. For Lily, each day was still a surprise. She woke up to sunlight filtering through soft curtains instead of cold air biting her face. She dressed in clean clothes and ate warm meals. But more than anything, she had a purpose. She wasn't just the girl with a rusty bike anymore. She was the heart of the Willow Light Fund. Every week, she and George visited the retirement home. They brought books, puzzles, warm socks, and laughter. Lily would sit beside the old women and men, listen to their stories, and hold their hands when they cried. She remembered what it felt like to feel forgotten. She made sure none of them ever felt that way again. Back at school, she began tutoring younger students. She helped a girl named Ellie learn to read without laughing at her stumbles. She shared her own stories of sleeping in storerooms and getting kicked out with just a plastic bag of clothes. "Your life changed," Ellie whispered one day. "But how did it happen?" Lily thought for a second. Then she smiled. "Because I stopped for someone when no one else would." George's health improved slowly. He no longer forgot names or wandered outside confused. His cheeks were pinker, his voice stronger, and his eyes sparkled again. "You gave me something money couldn't buy," he said one afternoon. "Hope." They often sat on the porch together, sipping tea and watching the sun go down. Lily would sketch little ideas for future fundraisers while George told her about his younger days as a business owner, and how lonely the house had felt after his wife passed. "This place was just bricks before you came," he said one night. "Now it feels alive again." One Saturday morning, Lily stood in front of a crowd at the town's community center. People from all around Westbridge had gathered for the first Willow Light celebration, an event to raise money and bring awareness to forgotten elders and homeless teens. Lily wore a simple yellow dress and held a microphone with slightly shaky hands. But when she spoke, her voice was clear. "I used to sleep on a cot in a storeroom," she began. "I thought I'd be alone forever. Until one day, I stopped to help a man who looked lost. That moment changed everything, for both of us." The crowd grew quiet, listening closely. Kindness isn't always big or loud. Sometimes it's just a warm cup of tea. Jacket. Ride home. But that kindness grows. It doesn't stop with you. Applause filled the hall when she stepped down. George, sitting in the front row, wiped his eyes with a handkerchief. Later, several people came up to her. A woman who had been kicked out by her parents. A man who used to be a teacher but now lived in his car. A shy teenage boy who said he had no friends. Each one told her the same thing. Your story gave me hope. Lily still rode her old bike sometimes. She would pedal through town after school, not because she had to, but because it helped her remember. She'd stop by Johnson's Market, where Mr. Johnson always had a smile and a free apple waiting for her. You still that girl on the bike, he told her one day. But now you carry more than packages. You carry light. She laughed. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. One evening, Lily returned home to find George sitting in the garden, staring up at the sky. He patted the bench beside him. Come sit. She joined him quietly. The garden smelled of fresh earth and blooming flowers. The stars twinkled above. I've been thinking, George said slowly. There may come a time when I'm not here anymore. Lily frowned. Don't say that. He smiled gently. It's life, my dear. But I'm not afraid. Because I know the fund is in good hands. Yours. She shook her head. I'm just a kid. You were, he said. But you grew. You cared. You gave. That makes you stronger than most adults I've ever known. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. What's this? She asked. Something I planned before I met you. But now I want you to have it. Inside was a letter and a legal document. It said Lily would be the official director of the Willow Light Fund if anything ever happened to George. Her hands trembled. I don't know what to say. Just say yes, he whispered. She did. Lily graduated a year later, top of her class. She gave her speech at the school ceremony, wearing the golden willow pin on her gown. Afterward, the whole town celebrated. The mayor honored George and Lily for their work with a special plaque that now hangs in the town square. On the back it reads, In a world that often looks away, may we be the ones who stop, the ones who notice, the ones who care. Years passed. Lily grew up. She built Willow Light into something even bigger. She opened safe homes for teens, started reading clubs at retirement homes. She taught kindness like it was a subject in school. But she never forgot that night. That cold, quiet night at the bus stop, when an old man stood shaking in the snow, and everyone else passed by. Except her. She visited that bus stop often. Sometimes to sit, sometimes to think. And every now and then, a young delivery girl or a tired old man would walk past her. And she would smile, remembering where it all began. Because sometimes life doesn't change with big things. Changes with a choice. One jacket, one cup of tea, one ride home. And sometimes, you don't find home. Home finds you.